In today's video I'm going to show you how to paint this watercolor fox. You can follow this with any brushes you are comfortable with, but I will list everything I'm using in the description below. I will also link the sketch that you can download for free. As you can see, I already have the sketch here. I have placed it at the top of the layers panel. Now I will load the opacity and I'm going to start painting on a blank layer below. For the brush, I'm going to use the watercolor background and first I will fill out everything that's orange. Now I will switch the brush to the watercolor detailed blurred and I will use it to soften the transitions. I will use the eraser brush, which is set to the ink, and I will clean the edges. I'd like to keep the irregular edges that I really like, so I'll use another method here. I go to Adjustments and Liquify and I will just push the edges to match my sketch. I think I will just combine those two ways depending on the need. Now, using watercolor sip, I'm going to work on the edges a bit more to make them darker and not so smooth. Once you are happy with the shape of the fox, duplicate the layer, use Hue Saturation Brightness and set the brightness to the max. Then duplicate the layer several times and merge them all together. Now we can apply Alpha Lock. I'll grab the watercolor heavy diluted and I will add some darker edges and spots. I think it will give a nice watercolor effect. Now I'll change the brush to the watercolor sip and I choose a pretty dark brown. I'm going to paint paws and ears. That brush is perfect for that because it blends color really easily. Now I'll switch the brush to the watercolor for everything and I will add more dark details and shadows. Now I'm going to choose a pretty light orange tone. For the brush, I will take the watercolor background and I will make a new layer below the one I have painted on so far. Now I'm going to color the rest of the fox. I'm going to make some shadows. I choose a bit darker tone and I change the brush to the watercolor sip. Then I'll switch the brush to the watercolor heavy diluted and I will add some bigger spots on the belly. I'm going to move on and add some texture to the fur. So I'm going to select the layer with the orange fur and make a blank layer above it. I'm going to use a pretty dark orange tone and for the brush, the watercolor for everything. And now I'll just paint a lot of short, tiny lines. I think the fur texture looks pretty good, but it's too strong, so I can adjust the layer opacity. Then I follow the same process and add some texture to the fox's belly. I just make sure it's on a separate layer so I can easily adjust the opacity later. I can move on to the face. I'll make that on its own layer, and I'm going to use black and white and HB pencil. Next, I'll make a new layer to start the cap. I will draw its shape still in white and HB pencil. Once it's ready, I'll apply alpha lock to that layer. I'll choose light gray and I'll grab the watercolor for everything to add some shadows. Now I tidy up the layers. I will put all the fox elements into one group. We can move on and start painting the stone. I'm going to make it on a new blank layer below everything. For the color, I'm going to use a light gray, and for the brush, I'm going to use the watercolor for everything. Once the shape of the stone is done, I'll select one of its surfaces, use hue, saturation, brightness, and I reduce the brightness a bit. And I will do the same with the rest of the surfaces. Now duplicate the layer, use hue, saturation, brightness and set the brightness to the max. Then duplicate the layer several times. I see that the stone looks much better when it's darker, so I will leave one more layer without brightening it. Now I can merge them all together. Now I can use alpha lock. I want to add some shadows to the stone. I'll select a bit darker gray, and for the brush I will use watercolor for everything. I think it looks good, so we can start working on the background. I would like to add some leaves and flowers. I will do it on a blank layer below. This is a great time to have fun and play around with the brushes, so just paint the plants you like and enjoy it. I also add some ground. I'll make a separate layer underneath everything and I'll use the watercolor background as a brush. Then I'll switch the brush to watercolor detail blurred and I will use it to smooth it out a bit. I will change the brush to watercolor sip to add some darker shadows. I think I still need to add some more plants behind the fox. Now I see that there is one more thing I've forgotten. I still haven't finished the tail, so I'm going to make a new layer above the layer with the orange fur, and this will be clipping mask. I'll choose the white and for the brush watercolor sip, and I will paint the lighter part of the tail. Now I'll switch the brush to the watercolor detail blurred and I will slightly smooth the transitions. And there we go, I think it's done. If you think I've earned it, please give this video a like and subscribe the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for your support, thanks for watching and happy creating!